for about 5 years now, we've tried to objectively measure which of our brands are clearly purposeful, sustainability-driven brands. And roughly speaking, they make up about half the portfolio. And what we're seeing is an acceleration of the growth difference between those brands and the rest of the portfolio. Year by year, that number gets bigger.
Sustainability. It's one of the biggest challenges in society, and as such, also a big challenge for marketers. That is why we've created a video with reflections from leaders on this topic. You can listen to Patagonia on how they are about to save our home planet. We are also featuring Hakan Bulgurlu, who is the CEO of Arçelik, a consumer goods giant that is leading the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for a couple of years now. He also managed to climb the Mount Everest to draw the attention to the climate crisis. And you can listen to Hala Tomastotir. She is the CEO of the B Team, and she will talk about accountability. And we're going to close this video with Jope, the CEO of Unilever, in which he explains the business case of sustainability. Enjoy.
There's only 421 weeks till 2030. The way we look at it is we take our vision where we want to be at 2030, and we weekly report on how we're going, how we're doing. What have we done that week towards reaching that goal? And our goal for 2030 depends on us creating new technologies which don't exist today, innovation and technology, which means we're committing a huge amount of R&D power, and not just human capital, but also hard capital, cash, into coming up with new technologies which will allow us to get there. What is that? We are saying globally, we will cut emissions caused by our appliances by 50%. I'm not aware of any manufacturing business in any industry that is making claims so deep, because essentially what we're saying is the refrigerator you buy will use half the amount of energy it does by that date than it does today. And refrigeration technology has been around for 100 years without much change. So It's a Herculean task. But where we want to be clearly is today we lead the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. It just got announced last week, 3 years in a row now. And it's a great honor because people usually expect a Swedish or a Dutch or a German company to lead that way, not an American yet. The Americans have a bit of catching up to do, but definitely European. And coming from an emerging market like Turkey, it's especially relevant because we are most of the increase in emissions will come from developing countries. So the example is critical, but we will continue to lead industry in our sustainability effort. Our goal is that in 2030, our brands are immediately and easily recognizable to every consumer as the most green and sustainable brand that does the right thing by the planet. I don't think that'll be too difficult because the ones that don't do it will have disappeared by then, I think. Companies that really don't transform themselves won't exist. Because if you see younger people, the new generation, especially what we call, they all have letter names. It doesn't matter. People under 30 years old today are aware of the problem, and they are blaming us for creating the problem that they will have to live through the difficulties of. And they will particularly reward businesses that actually transform between now and then. So in 2030, I hope to see us as probably the leading home appliances and electronics business globally on the back of this sustainability as a business model and a core purpose of existence.
I can imagine that with the goals that you've described and the vision that you have, solo is not an option.
Well, I mean, it's interesting actually that you say that. I was at a panel, Leaders on Purpose at Glasgow a few weeks ago. Yeah. And on that panel, I tried to explain that I do actually feel alone a little bit sometimes as a leader because I don't see, now I understand what needs to be done and what we can do. When I don't see others doing it, it kind of is a little bit lonely, if I have to say that, or it feels as though you're pioneering, so almost climbing a mountain without a lead guide. You know, you're leading the way, and it can feel lonely because you're not sure if there's a crevasse under the next step you take, or if it's actually solid ground because nobody's been there before. I get that feeling sometimes, but I definitely don't feel alone in terms of the company. I mean, you can ask any corner of Arçelik today in any market we operate in, and we have 28 factories in 9 countries, 50 subsidiaries in around the world. Ask any of them. Some may be on this call. They will tell you that they work for Arçelik because of its singular purpose on basically fighting what's coming. I mean, and it's a serious crisis. So I gave you both answers there a little bit, but it's funny you asked that question. And yes, mountains are unbelievable to be alone, because that's where you get the self-reflection, the noise disappears, and it is definitely a meditative experience. I came back a better person, many reasons, because I learned, I probably went there with a lot of hubris and sort of ego, but came back with my tail between my legs, just grateful to be alive. And that just changes the perspective you have on life, of what really matters.
The question of the commercial side of our business and the role of growth within Patagonia is, it's a constant dialogue within the company, as you might expect. We talk about responsible growth, and responsible growth means first and foremost that we're able to take care of all of our most important stakeholders, and that starts with our employees, but it also continues out to our partners, including our supply chain. So building a company that is sustainable, and that includes financially sustainable, is really important. So that's just a sort of, if you like, a foundational context that being financially healthy isn't a bad idea within this company. We're a for-profit company. And the one thing that I have certainly experienced in my time here is that the more strident we are in the things that we care deeply about, the more people are interested in engaging with us. And people choose to engage with Patagonia in a lot of different ways. Some people choose to engage with us by learning how to repair their clothes. For some people, it might be their first interaction with environmental activism of some kind. But for a lot of people, engagement with Patagonia is buying high quality clothing from us. And to a certain extent, being proud that they can symbolize their shared values with us. And so as we have become, I would say, more strident in our sort of and publicly explicit about our mission, our community has grown and our business has grown. But I need to be really clear that at no point have we discussed the coupling of those two facts. One hasn't been designed to drive the other, but another really powerful outcome of our growth is our ability to also accelerate our impact on the issues that we really care about.
Is there a sequence or an order in the importance of these stakeholder groups for Patagonia? Like, does one come first? Is it colleagues first, or customers, or planet first, or the shareholders?
I think it's planet first, and I think because that's what the DNA, that's the red thread throughout our organization. That's what it bonds. That's what we hold with our core values. But I think we treat our internal community, our employees, and our customer community, the external facing, they're both equally important. And I think that we treat them in the same way in terms of approach, in that we can, just as customers come and vote with their money by buying Patagonia because they believe, in good quality product that, is a mission-driven organization and protecting the planet. Our employees come with their talent and their skills, and they vote that they want to be with us to make that change and impact. So one is as equally as important as the other. And I think that that's the way we treat it in Patagonia. And we give our employees voice by, allowing for 2-month paid internships. When we had the climate actions about a year or so ago, we invented a bail policy where we would give our employees bail and get them out of jail if they went out into the streets and marched for environmental activism. This is a first for me in terms of my HR career, where a company is willing to do that. And it's also about, involving our employees just as our customers and gathering them together through events and knowledge sharing. And that's what people from all walks of life, politicians, academics, we want to learn and know what we can do to save our home planet. And we actively involve all the different stakeholders and oftentimes bring them all together by what we do.
I'm a straight talker, as you may have noticed. I don't think any of these efforts are good enough yet. And so we are not moving at the speed and scale that we need to be. And we're facing existential threats. And so I think it's not, in my opinion, good leadership anymore to just do right in your company. But the bare minimum to be called, I think basically, my message to anyone here is, if you're not leading on embedding personal and planetary sustainability into the core of your purpose, your strategy, your brand, everything you do right now, if you're not leading on that, you will be left behind. But leading on that is still not enough, because you ought to be bringing, if you're in food, you ought to be bringing the food sector along. If you're in money management, you ought to be bringing others along. If you're in consumer products, you ought to be figuring out the plastics issue together with others. And there is a lot more going on this front, these coalitions working together. And if you are saying that you want a carbon neutral future and you want a nature positive future, are you participating in organizations that are lobbying against regulations and policies in Washington, D.C. or at the European Union level at the same time? That's not credible, and that's going to hit you in the face. I think increasingly organizations will be held to account to do as they say, organizations and leaders. And we're going to see a lot of leaders lose their jobs if they put out brand messaging that doesn't match the actual reality of what they then, how they pay their people, how they incentivize them, what they actually do in their own lives, and so on and so forth. The era of accountability is here.
Why is Unilever pushing so hard on sustainable business? Why are we so determined to tackle the environmental and social issues in the world with our brands and our business? The answer is because there's an absolutely rock solid business case. First, brands which tackle societal and environmental issues are outgrowing other brands. It is primarily a growth case. Secondly, we've taken about €1 billion of cost out of Unilever through sustainable sourcing. Now, it's a very interesting curve. Very often there's an initial on cost, and then it becomes cheaper. So there is a leap of faith when you say we're going to use recycled plastic, we're going to move to sustainable palm oil, we're going to move to rainforest certified tea. There's an initial on cost, but over time it goes away. Same as we said, we're going to run 100% of the electricity used in Unilever worldwide is from renewable sources. When we made that commitment, it was at a premium. Now it's a cost saving. So it drives growth, it's a cost saving. The third is it reduces risk. When we stubbed our toe on Black Lives Matter, and we did it on a couple of brands, we got it wrong. Our reputation was such that allies came to our aid to help us out. Yeah. Similarly, there is no healthy Unilever on an unhealthy planet. This is not a future thing. Our sales in November were lower than they would have otherwise been because of extraordinary typhoons in Southeast Asia and the Philippines. Every month, climate change reduces our sales somewhere, whether it's fires in Australia or on the West Coast or typhoons in India. Yes, it's a here and now thing. So it's a growth initiative, it's a cost initiative, it's a risk initiative. But what's the most important?
The right thing to do.
It's a magnet for the best. Young people want to come and work for companies that are conducting themselves to high social and environmental standards. End of. A few years ago, we run graduate recruitment programs in 54 countries around the world. A few years ago, we were the employer of choice in our sector for people leaving the colleges in 17 of 54 countries. Last year, it was 52 of 54 countries where we topped our sector for young people joining business. Well, that's got to be a competitive advantage. So none of this is driven by altruism or moral high ground. This is driven by hard business case. And our brands are starting to get that.